Hello, early birds. I am showing the agenda for tonight, and I also put a copy of it in the chat box, so you can open it up and look at it on your own there. Hello. I'm showing the agenda for tonight on my shared screen, but you can also find the file in the chat box. And if you double click on it there, it'll open up and you can see the agenda on your own computer.
Thank you.
Just take one more minute to give people some more time to log in. Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to the February meeting of the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council. I want to mention one more time that I put the agenda for tonight's meeting in the chat box. And if you open the chat box and double click on that file, you can see the agenda on your own computer. The first thing we start off with, as a tradition, is our treasurer's report from our treasurer, Wendall Smith.
Hi. So business checking has in it $1,122.67. Our savings account, which earns just slightly more interest, is $2,802.99.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Thanks, Randall. We're going to go slightly out of the announced order. Chris Wharton told me that he's got to sign off early to get to court, I guess, for his day job. So we'll let Chris go next.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. Yeah, I'm sorry that to have to do this for the second month in a row, but I keep having these court presentations that come up and I have to go and do them. So, but I did want to check in with all of you and say hello and just tell you what the council is working on. We did have our the council retreat, which we don't actually retreat anywhere, but we just get together and talk about what our priorities are for the year. And some of the major priorities that were identified are revisiting the xeriscaping ordinance for the city and updating that. It's been over 20 years. That we want to continue to move forward on traffic calming initiatives. That we're going to be looking at other areas to address water conservation. And then specifically to our district, a major priority for me is to try to get more funding for the Wasatch Plunge building. Right now, there's a recommendation that we do some improvements to the building to get it back up to a point where it's more stable. I would like us to give a little bit more and get it to a place where it's people can go inside and we can occupy it for one reason or another. I think the more people we get into the building, the more interest we generate in the building, and the more more residents are likely to say, this is something that we as a city value and we want to invest in this asset even further. So I think, if we pay a little bit more now, it's going to pay off for us long term. The other thing that the council's really all consumed with right now, of course, is the legislative session. It's always a very busy time for the council, and we're seeing, as always, as we do every year, more and more encroachment by the state into local control. The state wants to exert a lot of control over everything, really, but in particular, a lot of assaults on the authority of local government, and trying to either limit that authority or take that authority away entirely. And of course, we feel that as city council members and as the government, closest to the people, that we're in the best position about how to make those decisions for our city, and that it's okay if there is differences between Salt Lake City and Orem or Bountiful or whatever, that's part of democracy and part of local government, and that's helpful. And so those are my main updates. Does anybody have any questions for me or about what the council's doing?
Polly, you have a question?
I do. Chris, you brought up water conservation, and I just wonder, it feels to me like the city is just welcoming development, and I know that we have a housing crisis and that we need more housing, but it seems like the more we build, the more people we will have here, and we don't have enough water for the people that are here. I know this this is not aimed at you, but can why does the city keep welcoming more development? Because that consumes huge amounts of water.
Sure. So the city, I'll just say first of all that the city has obtained and been very, very responsible about the way that we protect and defend our watershed area. And that is because we make very calculated decisions about growth in our city and look at future water usage. And so, but I do understand that concern. I mean, constitutionally,
Oh, it looks good.
it's not legal for any city in the United States to say, you know, sorry, we're full, we're done. And so, you know, you have the right to freedom of movement between the 50 states, and that includes cities as well. Also, the way that we pay for, the only way for us to pay for growth that occurs naturally, and most of the growth that we see in our state, even though we do have a lot of state people relocating, most of the growth we see is from our own making. And if we don't grow and we don't realize the income that comes from that growth, we can't sustain the services that we offer now through taxes. The other thing is that under state law, there are a lot of state laws that say, you know, if most of the land we're talking about in Salt Lake City is either private land or is institutional. So a lot owned by the U, a lot owned by the state, a lot owned by the LDS Church. And, you know, private individuals are allowed to do what they want with their land within the confines of law. And if they ask the city to make changes to the land, like change the zoning or whatever, the city can't just say, I'm sorry, we're not taking new petitions right now. State law says that we have to process those petitions. We have to do it within a certain time. And state law prescribes the times when the city can and cannot reject those changes. So a lot of what we're doing is, you know, we recognize that we can't, a government and a city in particular cannot stop growth. The only thing we can do is manage it. And we try very, very hard in Salt Lake City to make sure that we're doing that in the most sustainable way possible. And there are lots of examples I could give, but that's what we're dealing with here. And that's certainly the case with our watershed.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Chris? Okay. Thanks, Chris, and good luck in court today.
Thank you. I'm going to put my my email and my phone number in the chat if anybody has any additional questions. So good to see all of you, and I look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thanks again. Okay, we'll return to the agenda. The next item is a report, an update on our traffic calming plan from Brian Hutchinson, the chair of our Transportation Committee.
Thank you. David, are we sharing the screen? Can you see the?
Yes, yep, we're seeing it.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so I guess I've got this image in the middle here. Just a second here. Right, so we've been meeting as a transportation committee, you know, at least once a month, but the group, which is comprised of a lot of board members and distributed throughout the neighborhood, has taken up responsibility for different sections of the neighborhood on the outreach effort, and so we're working right now on this project, and maybe what I could do is just share. I wanted to show you to navigate some of the transportation topics. I think if you were to go to chnc-slc.org, you would find this page, and this is just a quick review. And if you go to transportation and traffic and you click on that, you will see a host of articles on various topics. And one of the main topic, you know, I should, you know, while Chris is here, we can click on this topic, and basically what it talks about the approval of this project, which is a $600,000 award through the CIP application process that Chris was actually instrumental in restoring for citizen-driven applications, and then worked with fellow council members to approve this this package. And our neighborhood is identified as a prototype, or one of the earlier projects, because we have a lot of things in place. We have the engineering, a basic preliminary design, but also we have over 200 some odd petition signers. I think we have too many people speaking. Anyway, petition signers, but supporting this project. And here we are on the rough schedule. We're in phase 5, phase 4, actually, excuse me. Still working on the final engineering, and we're tweaking, doing block by block assessment with the transportation engineers' assistance to go back and make sure that the preliminary design is appropriate. And this is part of the public engagement process. We're also going back block by block, and this is to make sure that everyone's on board with the concept, and if there are any necessary changes to the plan. And that will be coming out in the next month. The public engagement process will be, you'll have door hangers, email contact, door to door, people walking door to door, making sure that we're all aware of what is in place. The overall plan is, or the purpose is to, we've identified several of the issues, which include, industrial traffic cut through, commuter traffic cut through from, neighboring counties, but also within our neighborhood, and also the Capitol Hill traffic, which is very energetic and ever present. And then we have the exhibitionist traffic that, with the racing and the modified mufflers we're trying to address. And that actually has been, for many decades has been present on State Street, and now it's continued up to Ensign Peak, and then coming up Victory and 6th North and 3rd West and every place. And by the way, ours is not the only neighborhood that's getting hammered by this nuisance. But so moving on, so as I said, we're in that process. We're developing this public engagement process. We've already engaged the public as over the last couple of years, but now we're going back with more, door to door, every household, and that's happening. And as I say, we'll have that dialed within a month, and then you'll start to see us on the through the various modes of communication. The key issue is speed reduction. One of the key methods is reducing speed, and use that through that can be achieved through engineering and education, and also with a bit of enforcement, although the enforcement component is actually stressed right now because the Salt Lake PD doesn't have sufficient labor, manpower or person power to support the education and the engineering. So that's something that we hope will be rectified. I do know that there's been an injection of funding to the Salt Lake PD, and so we expect to see some of that in return with maintaining safety on the streets. I rolled down to the bottom of this list, just to remind everybody that there of the amount of fatalities, of pedestrian fatalities, car crashes, and this is 2019 data, or 2020 data, excuse me, and it has not gone down, it's actually gone up. So just a quick reminder, and I think that's about it right now. Any questions?
You want to stop sharing your screen, Brian, so I can see
Yeah, certainly.
the people to see if there
Yeah,
if
here we go.
anybody raises their hand. Thanks. So that's good.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, John. Don't forget to unmute.
Okay, got it. When is the next transportation committee meeting, Brian?
Well, okay, so we have this ad hoc group that's working on the public engagement process, and we will be meeting next week, next Wednesday, and then the broader audience, we have yet to establish a date for that, but that will be, within sometime in the next month.
There was a question in the chat box from Louis Hunter about, she says she lives in a condo, and so we won't be able to hang something on her door. And I'm really glad she asked the question. There are a lot of people in the neighborhood who live in condos or apartments, and that will be an issue. All of the information, the door hanger is essentially just going to steer people to the website. It's because we don't have that many people on our email list, so we know we're not reaching a lot of people in the neighborhood. And a lot of people perhaps aren't in the habit of using the web or don't have a computer or something like that. So we don't want to make sure we don't exclude anybody because of the famous digital divide. But no one will miss anything by not getting a door hanger if you are in the habit of checking our website and if you are receiving our emails. If you are not receiving our emails, the way to do that is to go to the website, chnc-slc.org, and sign up for the mailing list, and then you will be all current on all of our news.
Great, yeah, thanks. I should mention that I think, is Micah going to be speaking tonight?
I'm sorry, who?
The representative for the Marmalade Library, Marmalade Square Apartments.
Yeah, well, Micah, yeah. He's
Micah,
supposed to be
excuse
here.
me.
I don't know if he's logged in yet or not, but he said he would be here.
Oh, okay, great, because if I could share the screen real quick, and then I'm leaving. On the screen here, you may be able to see this map. There's a big car. Can you see? I don't know if I'm doing it right.
It's pretty small, Brian.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, so we do have apartments, several apartments. Is that getting bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, we're working with the HOAs of several condominium and apartment block complexes in the neighborhood. And can you tell me, the person who commented earlier, which development they live in? They can probably put that in the chat so we can maybe contact them. But this map actually shows, I just took this off of Google Maps, and it shows traffic density, and it's also similar to Waze. It tells you where it's easiest to get through. This is a very powerful tool, and one of the things that we're going to achieve in the neighborhood is the neighborhood will not be all green lines. It's not a freeway. It's a neighborhood, and so the speeds will be reduced, and so it won't be open season anymore in the neighborhood. But one of the things that the apartment complex that's coming online this spring can do to help us is to work on a pattern and maybe advising the neighborhood, the residents on the delicacies of the neighborhood, the sensitivities of the neighborhood. We have Washington Elementary, the library, et cetera, that we're trying to protect. And so we can all be good neighbors. I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. So going back to the agenda, we heard from Chris. Now we're going to hear from Detective Bob Norgard from the Salt Lake City Police Department. Bob, you want to unmute?
Sound like, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to shoo my 6-year-old away. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hey there.
Okay, back to business. So I just have a few things to address. Overall, in the entire district, stolen vehicles are going down, but they seem to be increasing on North and South Temple between the areas of West Temple and 600 West. And likewise with stolen license plates off of cars. So please remember to lock your cars open. If you have an alarm, please remember to set it. The vehicle break-ins and thefts of property is also going down, but they're still happening. The reports I went through, the commonalities were vehicles being unlocked and people leaving valuables like purses and laptops just right in plain view. That just makes you a very easy target. A couple of interesting cases happening involving firearms. One was on the 200 block of 400 West. It was an attempted rape where the suspect was completely covered in a mask and gloves. He held a young lady at gunpoint, but she was able to scare him off and knock the gun out of his hands and get rid of him. So that's the best outcome there. And another one was an attempted robbery with a gun in the area of 1700 North and Chicago Street. Likewise, another suspect wearing a ski mask approached a gentleman in his vehicle, opened the car door, stuck a gun in his face, demanded money. The victim refused. The suspect fired one round into the ground. The victim on that activated his car alarm, which was genius because that scared the suspect away. The officers were able to recover the shell casing, which is good for us because we can run it through a system and see it if it matches any other shell casings from any other crimes, that we can hopefully track down who has that gun. That's pretty much it. I wish I had some good news to tell you. Overall crime is decreasing in your district, and hopefully it continues that way. Are there any questions?
I don't see any, Bob.
Okay, well, I will hang
So-
out for a bit. I have another meeting at 7, and I'll put
Okay.
my email in the chat box.
Thanks so much. Okay, let's see. I know that Catherine is here, Catherine Kennedy. You want to go next, Catherine?
Sure, I'm happy to. Hello, everyone at Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council. Thank you so much for attending these meetings and listening to the reports of my colleagues and me. I am your representative on the Salt Lake City School Board, and we are busy working on our student achievement plan and also talking more about the demographics that I shared with you last time. As you may remember, if you were there, the city's number of children are decreasing even while the population increases, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We expect to have our student population go from 25,000 to about 17,000 within a span of about 8 years. It's already started, and we're about down to about 20,000 students right now. That means that we're going to need to close some schools. And so I think everyone should be aware of that. Washington does have a small school community right now, and I do think that Washington is at risk. We'll do everything we can to keep Washington open. I do think that Washington is geographically isolated based on the freeway position of the freeway and Third West and the canyon. So I think we have reasons to keep Washington open rather than close it. But we do need to make sure that we're on top of that and that we're working towards keeping that wonderful school open. So those are some things that I am thinking about, and I'm happy to take any questions, or I'll also put my my information in the chat box. I don't have a long report tonight, David, unless people have questions. I will be staying till 7:30 when I have another meeting.
Well, I have one, Catherine. I have heard indirectly that the actual student population at Washington is larger than the official census. Have you heard anything to that effect?
So when you say the official census, do you mean the census of the United States Census is what you mean?
No, I'm sorry. That wasn't very clear. No, I mean the official numbers that the school district has for attendance at the school.
That should not be the case. If it is, I'd love to hear more about it. The numbers are based on October 1 counts typically, and or on days of attendance from the past year. And so those are kept pretty accurately. And because that's how the legislature, those are the methods by which the legislature funds the school. And they do include students that are not in the boundaries. So we have a lot of students that are attending Washington that are not in Washington's boundaries because it's a great school. It's also on the way to downtown. I hope people here are aware that Washington has put in the Elementary International Baccalaureate program, which is a character-based program and an integrated program for school coursework, but not the same kind of academically rigorous program that you have in the high schools, the IB is in the high schools. So it's a different program. It's a great program. It's part of the same IB program, but they don't do academic rigor. They do more character building and talk about how different curricula integrate with each other. So it's a terrific program. We're really happy about it. It does introduce language into the school. And that is happening at Washington. It's a new program there, and it's drawing a lot of students. But the numbers should be, the reported numbers should be the same. And if they're not, David, I'd love to know. I'd love to have more information about that. So, please let me know, and because we should definitely follow up on that.
Okay, I'll try.
But the legislature is very, we really have to be careful about those numbers, and we are audited on those numbers every year by a certified auditor. So we are accurate because we have to be accurate in order to get the funding that we need.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any other questions?
Just the only thing left is that the new filing date. Thank you for reminding me that the filing date for people running for school board this year would be a year that this seat is up, is early. The legislature has moved filing date early for everyone in Salt Lake County. It's the 24th of February through, I think, March. I can't remember if it's the 4th or 5th, something like that. And I had decided a long time ago that I was not going to run. And I know there's one person from the Capitol Hill community that is planning to run, and I'll let that person introduce herself at a later meeting. And so I just wanted people to know that filing deadline has moved up, and we do have a wonderful candidate, but of course it's always good to have an exchange of ideas in case other people plan to run. And so I am working down on my last 10 months, and it has been a pleasure, and you'll hear from me again, but it's been a pleasure to be your representative.
Well, thank you very much for all you've done for our community.
Thanks.
Oh, Brian, you have a question?
Yeah, Catherine, I wonder if you could, we had a discussion about having 24/7, 20-minute-an-hour zones for every schoolyard. And this, for those who don't live near the schools, kids go there all the time. And it was especially evident at the beginning of COVID. And I'm wondering, this project, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to bring this up in your meetings with the school board.
So that would be something that would be brought, the school district does not set as I'm sure you know better than I do, the speed limit. So that would be brought to the city council. And I think it's a great idea, but you would bring it to them. I like the idea very much, very positive about that idea, not just because we see people, the school children and other people going to the schools at all hours and all days, but also because it reminds people that it is a school zone and that they need to slow down regularly right there. And so I think that's a great idea. I support it and would love to see your community bring that forward for the schools in our area. So thank you so much, Brian, for the good work you're doing to keep people safe. When you were talking, I was thinking about an article I saw in the New York Times about how traffic accidents are way, way up during the pandemic, that people have become more aggressive, more impatient drivers. And so we just all need to be aware of that and be aware of people that are going around and and the kids that are going to schools all over the neighborhood, the Capitol Hill neighborhood. They're going to West, and those high school kids tend to cut corners and run across the street and things like that. So just be very careful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Catherine.
Thank you.
Next person on our agenda is a gentleman named Zach Wendall. He is a student in City and Metropolitan Planning at the University of Utah, and he asked me a couple months ago for some time at our meeting to discuss gentrification, which I guess is a project that a class he's in is working on. So Zach, can you unmute and turn on your camera and take it away?
Alrighty. Let's see here. Alrighty. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, as David said, my name is Zach Wendall. So thank you for having me come on tonight. So I am a student of the City and Metropolitan Planning department up at the University of Utah. Our class is partnering up with the West Side Studio, and we are helping the Thriving in Place Salt Lake City anti-displacement strategy. And so basically means when low-income residents have to move because they can't afford to rent or no longer be able to own a home in a specific area. So I just was going to take a couple minutes today just to kind of go over the project and kind of go over what has been done and kind of what the plan is to kind of go into the future. So to kind of go over, so there are a few different partners that are part of this project. So besides the University of Utah, there is a group that is called Barrett, and I'm going to say their names wrong, sorry. It's Bryant and Driscoll Community Planning. They are a national leader in affordable housing policy development with deep commitment to ensuring that those who are affected by policy decisions are involved in shaping them, and so that they can be a part of those decisions. The second one is UC Berkeley's Urban Displacement Project. They are a national leader in analyzing and understanding the forces that drive displacement and gentrification in areas. So last semester in Community Engagement in Planning and Zoning for Equity course, the students in that class, they interviewed about 420 residents, and they collected people's stories on the neighborhoods that they lived in, the changes and the hopes that they had for their community into the future. And they also mapped their assets that should be preserved. And let's see here, I'd already, as you might have seen, I accidentally already put this link into the chat already. So you could click on that, and then that pulls up this where you can go specifically to like Capitol Hill, and you can see some of the things that your fellow residents and other people in other neighborhoods around Salt Lake have said and wished for their neighborhoods. So just kind of a little quick thing. This one is just specifically about Capitol Hill. So in the previous semester, the student kind of found that many of the assets mentioned in interviews were of local shops and restaurants, and people were worried that with this change and with continued development and all this new development, that these businesses would get pushed out, and they want to make sure that the neighborhood can preserve and save those. Along those lines is also the unique characteristics of the Capitol Hill area, because it does contain a lot of those very old historic homes and buildings where that architecture is, you can't find it anywhere else in the city. And so many people did say that it was very important for them to be able to keep that characteristic and be able to save some of those buildings and things. They did kind of find that it's kind of one of the big changes that have occurred in the Capitol Hill area over the course from 1970 to 2019 is that residents with college degrees have increased dramatically, and this has led to a direct impact of median household values and incomes greatly increasing, which does make it harder for people of lower income to remain in the area and be able to afford it. So Salt Lake City has created this project, it's called Thriving in Place. So there, I will put a link to this website in the chat. And then this is where we are presenting a survey that everyone is able to go and participate in. I believe currently they're still finalizing the survey, so it's not quite up yet, but it will be up there. And you can also get on and subscribe so you can get updates and you can be part of that. And so that when that survey does come out, you can take that and be able to participate and give your opinions and your thoughts and your worries and concerns about your neighborhoods to Salt Lake City and to this project, so that policies can be enacted and thought about and researched about. So this is where this is kind of the project timeline. So the first is kind of like listening and learning. So we are starting by making sure we understand the problems we are trying to solve, as well as the opportunities and assets that can help address them. In addition to data-driven analysis, we want to hear from the community about their experience of gentrification, of displacement, providing a fuller understanding of the dynamics and impacts of gentrification. We also document and map community assets, the special places, cultural resources, as well as individuals and organizations that contribute to community cohesion. And then crafting and collaborative solutions are, based on what we learn, we will then work together to agree upon priorities and actions for addressing the displacement and gentrification. An important focus will be on defining a shared framework that can guide a coordinated action by the city and other government agencies, including recommended policy changes, as well as community-based organizations and community partners. And with that, I thank you for your time and let me come on here and just give this small little presentation. And if you have any comments or questions, I can go ahead and try to answer them or write them down, and I can pass them along to the professor and see if we can't help you get some answers.
Okay, would you mind stopping your screen share, please? So I can see everybody's face and see if anybody's got their hand up. I have a question, Zach. Are you going to produce a map? I mean, is your project going to produce a map of affordable housing? I mean, what's currently affordable, so we know what to watch out for, and what areas, if development's proposed for these areas, we should be extra careful?
That I am not sure of. This is basically at the moment is we're just trying to gather information. So it's kind of a lot of just seeing what people feel like, if they feel like there is too much development or if there's not enough affordable housing. So that's like once the survey comes out, there's a lot of questions about development and about stuff like that that we'll be able to help kind of tell the city and the West Side Studio and stuff like that whether there is too much development in an area, whether there's not enough affordable housing, kind of a thing.
Well, there's never enough affordable housing, right?
That's true.
But the map I'm talking about would be a very useful tool for us, because we often get to comment on development applications in our area. And certainly if a development proposed would eliminate some existing affordable housing, that would be something we would comment on.
Okay, I'll write that. I'll pass that along to our professor, and maybe they can look into creating something like that.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other questions? Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, excuse me, Zach, so speaking of maps, do you have the map of the city-owned, RDA properties around the city? They talk about affordable housing need for developing affordable housing, but there are significant chunks of land in the city that are not designated for anything, and I'm wondering why. And is this something that you've investigated? Because we need affordable housing. And actually, Library Square 20 years ago, RDA developed property. It took quite a long time, several decades, to reach this point, but there was no requirement for affordable housing, and that I think the winds have changed, and I'm wondering if that's something you could pursue.
I think that is a definite I have not personally looked into that, but I do think that is a very good thing to look at because the RDA does own a lot of land. And I think they could easily make those requirements. So I think that is a good thing to look into further and see if you can pressure the RDA to adopt those policies.
Any other questions for Zach? Okay, Zach, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, well, we're in a kind of awkward position here because neither of the other two people who were supposed to present tonight are in the meeting at the present time. So I guess, oh, I see Christina Rodriguez has her hand up. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Ivan, actually.
Oh, hi, Ivan. How you doing?
No, but I had a question about the statistics that Zach has shared. And
Oh, okay.
I don't know, I was just curious to see if what the correlation is between home prices and the education of the population. It seems to me that we have a higher number of educated people in this neighborhood, perhaps because there's a higher number of educated people in general everywhere. And it seems to me that there was not a correlation that, anyway, it was a long story, but I think higher prices came first. And then the people that could afford it happened to be educated and not the other way around. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Anyway, carry on.
Thanks, Ivan. I think it's a really good question. Zach, can you answer Ivan's question at all?
I would probably agree with you. Now that I'm thinking about it, you are probably right that it's probably the other way around. I should have worded it that way. So I had taken that information directly from the previous class that had done the interviews and stuff. And so I would agree that you were probably right that it's the other way around, that the prices did come before the education climb as well. But it's definitely something to further look into. Like there is a correlation, but it's still like an ongoing research into that correlation.
Yeah, it's probably
Hey, Zach,
sort of a chicken and egg effect, right? I mean, the demand goes up, the people who can afford the houses probably have a higher level of education, and then that causes values to rise even further. So it may be not one leading directly to the other, but a mixture of both.
David, it's Jeff Carlton. Just to make a comment, the flip side of it. Hi there. The flip side of that argument is someone that maybe had a modest house and has lived in it for 40 years appreciated the increasing value. So when they sold it, they made a significant amount of money. So that's the balance, right? Like, when do you tell people, sorry, we don't want you to sell your old house, versus sell your old house and bring in more dense housing options, for instance.
Right.
And that's the part I always struggle with when we talk about gentrification, is because they're forgetting the free will of the people who have an opportunity to make a lot of money because their homes have appreciated in value so much.
Right.
Just my comment.
Well, then that raises another question in my mind, which is, are you guys, Zach, is your group aware of any instances where people have been forced out of their houses because of rising taxes?
That one, I am not entirely sure on that one. That one would require, I'd have to look into that one a little bit more. A lot of what we have been kind of seeing is it's more of developers coming in and buying rows of single family homes that were once affordable homes and then tearing them down to then build market rate apartments. Right. Is kind of what we have been talking a lot more of. I'll write that down, and I was like, I think it's good to look into more of like the tax issue.
I don't know if it's happened here, but I know it happens in other cities where the taxes are higher. Our taxes are comparatively low, but in other places, it's really an issue. Okay, Jeff, you wanted some time tonight, and it looks like we have some. So you want to go ahead and talk about your project?
Sorry, David, I am not prepared to do that. I've got to put up some slides and prints and stuff, and I don't have it with me.
Okay. Well, That's not surprising
Thank
since
you,
I
though.
told you we wouldn't have time tonight.
I hear you.
Sorry about that. Let me check one more time. I just don't see either of our guests here. So, well, we could just spend some time sort of with open mic. Anything anybody has on their minds that they would like to talk about? Questions they would like to ask of anybody here? Please just unmute and fire away.
David, it's Jeff again. I mean, the
Yeah.
thought of losing our school in the middle of our community really bugs the heck out of me. And I don't know what we can do to help support that it remain. But that's something I'd be very much in favor of spending some time and energy on.
Okay. Other people feel the same way?
So I would say that the big thing is to get students to enroll in Washington, if we can. We just need to talk about what a great school it is, how many opportunities there are, the convenience of it to downtown offices. So anyone that can help with that would be terrific. And then you just need to watch. We had Lowell Elementary close in District 3 in 2003. And so we've lost a school in District 3, and there was also a school that was closed in District 7. And so it's really not our turn, and that needs to be brought up. In fact, there are some districts that have had very few schools closed that in terms of closure for the last 50 years. The schools that there are some districts that just have not had schools closed. For example, District 5 is one, and I grew up in that district, so I feel like I know it well. That's sort of the Uinta Bonneville district. They have some schools that are sitting very close together. And so we just need to talk about equity and talk about the students and their needs and that kind of thing. We will be looking at numbers, and we will try to make it a fair process. And sometimes in the past, it has not been as a fair, equitable process. For example, it's a mystery to me why they closed South High School, which is now where the Salt Lake Community College is on 17th South. That used to be one of our high schools, versus closing either East or Highland. I went to East, but versus closing East or Highland, it seems to me that it was the East Bench protecting its own. That happened in 1986, and I have friends that were on the school board then, or my parents' friends really is who they were, and they are nice people, but they protected their own schools. And that was a mistake that continues to plague our district to this day. The fact that we have West High, and then we have two East Side schools sitting a little over a mile apart is a problem. I mean, we need the location at South High School. So we just need to make sure that we're advocating for the school district to do the right things. There's a year-long process that we have identified for closing schools. Like I said, it is identified, it is spelled out in our policies. And so we'll go with that policy and look carefully at where we're closing schools and just try to make it so we are treating the city as fairly as possible. We do have a lot of schools on the west side right now that are under enrolled, and we need to be careful so we're not hurting the students who may not have a lot of access to individual cars to bring them to school. But what we expected, or what they expected 20, 25 years ago when they were building schools on the west side, they sort of did a big building spree on the west side around 25 years ago. And we just expected the west side to continue to boom, and it didn't. It's partly it's gentrification again, like we were talking about earlier tonight. And it's priced out some families and some different things. People are just not having as many children as we talked about all over the city. We talked about that last time. And so that's something, but probably we will need to close some schools. There are 2 schools in District 2, which is the Glendale area, two sets of schools, I think, really, that are, so 4 schools altogether that are on the small side. And there are some schools in District 1, which is the Rose Park area, that are on the small side. And they've got a lot more schools than we have in District 3. So those are some issues that I'm thinking about, certainly, that I'll share with the next person that sits in the seat. And I just hope that you all can be involved. And I do think it's important for Washington to stay in your community.
So you brought
Thanks,
up a concept that I hadn't even thought of before, was that folks that are commuting to downtown jobs could drop their kids off in the morning, pick them up at night. Does the school advertise that as a benefit of its location? And then secondly, are there any preschool or post-school programs that would facilitate that? Because most people's office hours are more extended than a school day.
Yes, Washington does have an after-school program. I think it starts on the earlier side. So I don't think it may not have a before-school program, but I do think it has an after-school program. And I think it starts early enough that that is not an issue. I think it starts at, we have our elementary schools on 2 different schedules right now, and I think it's on the early schedule. But I'll check into that and let you know. That just happened this year when we put our high schools on later start times.
Yep.
We do advertise that a little bit, at least, and a lot by word of mouth. We don't have a big PR machine, and we don't want to steal students from other schools in our own district. We want to take them from Davis and Granite and Tooele, et cetera. And I don't think those districts mind as much. They have plenty of students. So that's what we want to do. But we don't have, like I said, we don't have a budget for PR or advertising. So we do that mostly through word of mouth, and we should do more. But the school definitely does feel like that the school definitely knows that it needs to be doing that. But we just need the community to help us.
Well,
Right.
that's where I was going to go. Is that something the community could organize around to be more proactive in getting that message out? And
Absolutely.
it sounds like that's outside of the school's budget, but community leaders might be able to pitch in and figure out a way to make that happen.
That'd be great. It's outside the school's budget, and it's a little bit, you're treading on a little bit shaky ground for the school to do it themselves, for the school to say, we want your students. Although we can do some of that, I think it's getting to be more acceptable all the time.
Well, you see it with private schools all the time, trying to recruit
Yeah.
people, right?
Absolutely.
So why not a public school try and
Exactly.
recruit?
That's right. I agree. I completely agree.
Brian, you have a question?
Yeah, a quick one. Thanks. What's in the news right now is the American Heritage School that is actually planned to go in on 2nd North and 142 West at what's currently a steakhouse. How would that affect Washington Elementary and West High?
That school, my understanding of that charter school is that it does not draw the kinds of people from the avenues, that it does not typically draw Capitol Hill and Avenues residents. And that's not 100%. I mean, there are people that it will be attractive to, but we have I don't know. I mean, I can think of some ways to be very reductive and say that this community was very supportive of remote schooling and masking. And that doesn't seem to be the American Heritage seems to maybe define itself in different ways. And so District 3 was extremely supportive. Now, whether that would take students that might come to Washington that would go downtown for a different school, I'm not sure. It does seem to me to be different kinds of educational and personal philosophies. And I know we have a diversity of perspectives in the district, and I don't want to reduce anyone to one perspective, but it does seem to me that they are different constituencies in a large sense. Is that fair to say, do you think?
I don't know if it is, but necessarily, yes, I don't want to tread in that territory, but my concern is that we're using public funds to actually damage of public schools. And this is in a different way than the argument usually goes. And I want to make sure that that actually is, I don't know if you're on Capitol Hill these days, if that topic comes up, this is a case study. This is a case where these issues are, you can lay them out and show the, the effects of funding such schools with public funds and what it does to neighborhood schools.
That's right. It'll be interesting to see how much the numbers change. And we know if our students are typically we know if they go to other schools. Certainly we know if they go to the other public schools. And I think we know whether they go to public charters. I'd have to check into that. But so we will have those numbers, Brian, to see what happens. I don't think it'll affect West dramatically, to tell you the truth. I just think it's a very different population. But it could maybe affect Washington. But unfortunately, I agree with you about charters. But the charters are well established now, and there are two kinds of charters. There are district charters. We have our own charters. We have SLCSI as our own charter, is a Salt Lake City School District charter, and Open Classroom is a Salt Lake City School District charter, and SPA, the School for Performing Arts, is a different kind of charter than those two, but is also has some relationship with the Salt Lake City School District. But then you have other kinds of charters that are state charter to public schools, and that is what this school is. And you're right that it takes funds from us and that it doesn't help the public school system. Charters typically perform at the same performance levels as their demographics would predict. So I think that's true of American Heritage. But if you have a school population that has a higher income population, then they tend to perform better. And charter schools with lower income populations tend to perform similarly to their public school peers. So the charter schools to watch are actually ones that don't do that, both ways. If they underperform or they overperform, those are the charter schools that are interesting to watch, I think.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have an uninvited but welcome guest, Wade Brewer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Is with the Utah Highway Patrol, in charge of the security at the state capitol. And he would like to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, David. I just wanted to take an opportunity to say thanks for letting me be part of your group tonight and listen to a lot of the issues. And also, just as an introduction, I'm a fairly new lieutenant to Capitol Hill. There's only one uniform lieutenant over the Capitol security. So I've been here since mid-November to just in time get ready for the legislative session that we are under siege now with, and looking forward to the next 2.5 weeks being over and done, like many of you probably. But also to just put it out to there to see if you have any input for us for problems that occur on Capitol Hill property, which we are responsible for, that we can take action on. And one that I have heard some feedback on is these car clubs that come up to our property and make noise and break the law and do all sorts of stuff. So my commitment is to the Capitol Hill residents and to my section of the Highway Patrol is that we are going to do something about this year and in this next little while, especially as the weather warms up. And with that, I would just say, does everybody know how to contact our 24-hour control room here on Capitol Hill? I'd like to put that out there too.
If you can put that in the chat box, that would be great.
I will put that. I'll type that in the chat box. So if you see something, then you can notify us. We're there 24 hours a day, every day of the year.
Well, Wade, I think I can speak for the community when I say that anything that the Utah Highway Patrol can do to limit or reduce or hopefully eliminate the racing and the modified muffler problem, it's because up here on East Capitol Boulevard, it is frightful on certain nights. So we really appreciate any effort that you can put into that.
Yes, thank you. We are going to put some effort into it. Absolutely. And that may have not been happening in the past. And that's something that we can definitely take care of. And I don't know if it's going to completely get rid of it, but at least it might move the problem somewhere else. And they may not come to Capitol Hill anymore. And that would
Well,
be great with me.
that would be good with us too, although we would not wish this on anybody else.
Yes, agreed. Thank you very
David,
much.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Barb.
So I don't know if you have any information on all the helicopters that are always going over. It seems like especially late at night, about 9 or 10 o'clock, and almost every time I'm just starting to get ready to go to bed, I hear a lot of helicopters. Is anybody else hearing that? Maybe not.
Yeah, Brian says he is.
I will just give you a heads up. Obviously, 2 days ago, there was the 3 Blackhawks that came in to take the state legislators, the representatives, on a tour of the Great Salt Lake to see the issues with the drought and what the drought has caused. That is going to happen again tomorrow morning, starting at 7:30. They land again at 8:30 and then again at 9:30. So it doesn't happen very often for at least state capitol helicopters to come here. This will be the second time it's going to happen during the session. And then once in a while, there might be our state helicopter comes to pick up either a member of the governor's security team or the governor, but that is once again, very, very rare. They don't like to do that. So I think the helicopters you're probably hearing is the live flight that is stationed up at the U of U. No, Libby's shaking her head no. So I don't know. but it's not the state helicopters that you're hearing. Tomorrow is going to be the National Guard tomorrow morning.
I'd like to thank Lieutenant Brewer. I don't know if you know Christine Chastain, who lives at Wall Street and Girard. She's one with the Orchard, and she's befriended many UHP patrol. I'd have to say UHP drives very carefully through the neighborhood and is setting a good example. But we are working. I'd like to meet with you, or our group would like to meet with you and DC Purvis with Salt Lake PD to just go over what we're working on for the education, engineering, enforcement program related to traffic.
Yeah, perfect. Love it. I mean, we're in the area all the time, right? We use your neighborhoods to commute to and from our offices that are located up there. So I'm glad to hear that we are traveling safely through the neighborhood. I make it a point to even go 20 because I like that going 20 on those steep roads we should be doing that, right? So, and if you ever have a complaint the other way, feel free to reach out to me and we take that stuff very seriously. Just this last year, we worked with Salt Lake City Motors on some enforcement projects. And I would like to see us maybe target these neighborhoods up here and do some enforcement in conjunction with your planning. That's some resources that we have available to us.
That's great. That's great news.
Sent you
Because
the
right now,
contact
I'm
info.
sure you've heard that the Salt Lake City Police Department is severely understaffed. They're working on hiring and training new officers, but at the moment, they're telling us that they simply don't have the personnel to do traffic enforcement anywhere in the city, including our neighborhood.
Yeah. And I can feel for them because we are in the same boat, but at the same time too, where that's our primary responsibility, we're still making it happen. And where Capitol Hill is an assigned area of the Highway Patrol, we can make that a priority.
That's great. I'm really glad you came to the meeting tonight, Wade. It's really nice to meet you and hear from you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Would you please put your best contact information in the chat? Can you do that from where you are?
Yep, I'll do that right now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you. You bet.
Okay, we still have some time. Are there any other issues or questions or anything that anybody would like to raise?
Hey, just for the heck of it, while we were having that discussion about the American Heritage School, I Googled it just to see if I could understand a little bit more about it. And I don't think we have a lot to worry about in our public schools. It looks like in Utah, it's not licensed as a charter school. And I looked at their website and it's expensive to go to school there. So hopefully it won't draw too many students away. Let's see, I was looking at it, said 3,610 to 9,717 per year annual tuition. So I don't know how many people can afford that to to send elementary school kids to school anyway. So
Yeah.
hopefully Washington can stay open.
Well, thanks for that information, Scott. And you say that they're not licensed as a charter in Utah.
I spent like 5 minutes Googling, so I'm not sure how
Okay.
accurate, but
Well,
it said it was a private school. Now it says in Idaho it is a charter school, but not Utah.
Well, in that case, they will not receive public school funding. So the concern about drawing money away from the school is not going to be a problem in this case.
I sure hope that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Okay. Anybody feel free to unmute and unload. Well, I don't see anybody raising their hand or anything, so I guess we'll simply end the meeting a little early. I know that all of you were just dying to spend, a full hour and a half in front of your computer tonight, so I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I think I will simply declare the meeting adjourned. And thank you all for coming and for your interest in the community.
Thank you, Dave.